may have become a more unifying figure, but populism is all he knows and it has grassroots appeal. Like the 5,000 supporters who joined him last month in the Youth League March for economic freedom from Joburg to the Union buildings in Pretoria.
Did you walk personally?
Yes.
Distance?
Yes, I'm disappointed you were not there. There's never been a point where I was driven between here and Midrand. I fought with police, I've been fighting with police the whole day. Then they will say, no, we picked up information about people who want to attack you. And as it was becoming darker and darker, they resorted into getting into the car. But nevertheless, I was finished. The legs, the heart was pumping very fast, but I kept on soldiering on, and I led from the front.
But Malema has not always dreamed of being in the hot seat.
I've never wanted to be what I am. I've always wanted to be an activist of the African National Congress and grow up being sent around by the movement to teach people about the ANC and recruit the young ones into the African National Congress.
He was only 12 when Grisani died in 1993 and he snuck onto a bus to attend the mass funeral in Johannesburg. A year later, it was the first democratic election.
How did the election of Nelson Mandela as South Africa's first democratic president shape your teenage years?
Politics at that time were very simple for us. We wanted to live like white people. And when they said Mandela is one, we thought, no, now we're going to live like white people. Whatever they have, we're going to have it. We were told as young people in the movement that our suffering is as a result of the oppression by white people, and once we're liberated, this poverty is going to be history. You're going to live like them, you'll have the meal and jobs, you'll go to the same schools with them, better equipped and all that. But it was not to be achieved on the 28th of April 1994. We thought the struggle was over until President Mandela himself said the struggle is not over. This is the beginning of a new terrain of struggle where we'll have to usher in equal opportunities for our people.
What, according to you, is the new struggle?
The new struggle is economic freedom. The economic slavery must end. Economic dictatorship must end, where white minorities who constitute less than 10% of the population control more than 80% of the wealth of the country. We want the resources, mineral resources, to be shared. We want the banking, the finances of South Africa to be redistributed and shared. We are asking that we live equal life. All those privileges that they had during apartheid, they must not be taken from them. Let's share, all of us, those privileges. Our people will just walk from Alexander, just across the street, open the fridge, and just nest themselves with cheese and everything else they find in that fridge.
But it seems it was the way he did it that was irksome. His call for the expropriation of land without compensation stirred up a storm.
So you want expropriation without compensation?
Yes.
That's what you'd like to see in the Constitution?
Yes. So what is practically impossible about that? Because you need 2/3.
Who would you expropriate from, and who would you give it to?
We expropriate from those who own the land and give it to the public. From individual to the public. I'm saying public purpose and public interest.
So how do you respond to the property owner who says, I have paid for whatever I have worked for whatever I haven't received it illegally, and therefore I'm entitled to do with it as I choose?
First and foremost will come as government, which has got the right to expropriate, and engage you and say to you, look, we need this land, and these are the following reasons. There must be a process where we engage with you and all that, and there must be a point where we say, look, we've been talking. now we're taking.
Clearly, cabinet ministers have felt that this debate has ruffled investors. And so you've seen in recent weeks a number of cabinet ministers come out saying, look, nationalization is merely an investigation, it's not policy of the ANC, etc. So they clearly felt that they needed to muzzle him in some form or the other so that they could continue with their program.
Since your initial calls for nationalization, several ministers have sought to distance the ANC from nationalization as a policy. They say we're investigating it, but it's not ANC policy.
Any superstar who wants an attention through saying it's not an ANC policy, no. Who said it's an ANC policy? Because if it was an ANC policy, we're not going to propose it.
But earlier this year, Mineral Resource Minister Susan Shamangu was adamant this wasn't the ANC's approach. At the beginning of the hearings, Malema tried in vain to remove Shamangu from the disciplinary committee. He argued she'd be biased against him because she'd already ruled out the possibility of nationalization.
I'm convinced that nationalization, it's not an option for South Africa.
And we're saying to you now, nationalization is going to the policy conference of the ANC, and it will become an ultimate policy in December.
And in the run-up to the ANC's elective conference in Mangaung in December 2012, Malema wants a new script for new ANC leaders.
We're actually writing a document on the type of leaders we want beyond 100 years of the ANC. So it's going to be one of brutally honest document, very brutal. We're not going to be scared to outline what we look for in leadership.
He claims to be a servant of the ANC. But clearly the leadership of the ANC doesn't think he's a servant of theirs. They actually feel him an obstacle to the party. And that's a product of the divided nature of the ANC itself. So if anything, Julius is a servant of particular factions within the ANC as opposed to the ANC as a whole.
Apart from the internal processes that Mr. Malema has been subjected to, there is a very real possibility that he faces criminal charges. There is an ongoing investigation by no less than 3 government agencies into his alleged business dealings and possible, allegations involving bribery and corruption. So the journey for Mr. Malema is far from over. It might come to an abrupt end in the ANC, but we will certainly still hear a lot about Mr. Malema's business dealings, which state agencies are still probing.
I can explain every cent I've used in my life. I've never engaged in illegal activities. I've never manipulated tenders. How do I do that? I'm not suffering from sleepless nights. I am a politician. I know the game.
But the legal game he hasn't played before.
Public protector investigated some companies that are linked to me before. She didn't get anything. I've not done anything wrong. My lawyers have spoken to the Hawks, and the Hawks said we don't have any warrant of arrest against Julius.
The Hawks have confirmed officially that you are being investigated.
If there is a reported allegation of corruption, let the case be opened like it is opened now against me. Let the law enforcement officers be allowed a space to conduct their investigation. And once they get prima facie, they will decide to prosecute. And when they prosecute, we're here. I will fully cooperate with any form of investigation against me.
Can you see a political life for yourself outside of the ANC?
I will remain in ANC even when I'm no longer a member of the ANC. My blood is black, green and gold. I was born ANC. And even if I'm expelled, I will remain a loyal supporter. We are this type of people who don't actually need a card to be ANC. We are ANC. Our blood is ANC. So if there is anybody who takes away the card, they can't take away that loyalty and commitment to the African National Congress.
It's the organization that makes the man. It's not the man that makes the organization. They argue that was you were able to do that because of the Youth League. If you didn't have the Youth League, if you didn't have the resources to bus people in, if you didn't have the banner of the organization, you'll move into relative political obscurity.
I think the ANC's kind of drawn a line in the sand for Mr. Malema. And the key question is whether Malema is going to play by the ANC's rules. And I think that will determine whether he makes a comeback or not.
I'm not about to sell my soul. My generation has defined its own mission. I stand by that mission until I see my grave.